Hey up lads and lasses, Danfire here, back again with some more Infinite Lagrange, and today, one that a lot of you have probably been waiting for, going through the tier list. So, as you can see, we've got it up at the moment. This is the tier list prior to what it was before the changes and stuff like that. And we got, Xeno nerfs and what have you. And oddly, I didn't actually have the Marimbium in here, so we're going to add that in today as well. So I'm just going to go through quickly and talk about some ships that might be key within the current meta and the ones that obviously got changes, and move stuff around a little bit as we go through. So I'm going to start at the bottom with the situational. Carillion Recon, FG300 Recon, these don't really matter anymore because of the changes they made to... Well, basically, it's when they made the changes to everything being able to move 1200 cruising speed eventually. It takes a little bit more time for some ships and that sort of stuff. Generally speaking, it doesn't really matter anymore. You can argue you can run FG300s with maxed warp speed on them into fleets with very heavy stuff if you just want to get them as, to places quicker. And then obviously there's the reinforced technique for miners and stuff like that. But yeah, generally they're going to still sit in situational. I'm actually going to leave the Mer-N Siege and the Noma Siege also in situational. Because yes, they now have the ability to control or pseudo, it's like some weird takeover thing. I think they call it control. Stations and that kind of stuff in game. I just want to note, by the way, that level 2 cities are like, so if you want to try and control it, don't, unless you can get a lot of players. A friend of mine recently was telling me about this. I haven't managed to be able to test this myself yet. Yeah, trying to take a city with like 15, 20 fleets is not possible. You just don't have enough time, and that was with them running full like Mer-Ns and Noma Sieges, and so they had a bit of everything going, and yeah, no luck there whatsoever. So yeah, just ignore those for now. Obviously, if you want to take over, some of the bases and stuff like that, the outposts, fine, you can use them for that. But yeah, cities and stuff, I don't even know how long you need. They timed out at 2.5 hours with the calculation that they probably need around 10 hours to take the cities. So yeah, that's busted. I have pushed that to the devs though, because yeah, that's just ludicrous. You're expecting 20 fleets to take 10 hours to take a city. Yeah, not going to happen. So yeah, we'll leave them there for now. To be honest, they'll probably just stay in situation anyway, because you're just only ever going to use them for that. They don't really do much more than that. So yeah. Noma. This is the AA variant in D, this one here. The AA is slightly better. There are just flat out better versions for AA now. I tried the Mer-N AA as well, and to be honest, I'm still disappointed. They did significantly more AA than they did previously, which is non-existent. They're still not very good though, and I would recommend a million times to just run something else, in my opinion. So yeah, FG300, it's going to stay where it is as well, the multi-role version. Nothing really changed there. It's completely fine. It does what it does at 3 CP for... you can have 15 of them as well. Again, meme fleet, you can run all 3 FG300s and have 45 FG300s just because it's funny. But yeah, otherwise, generally, they're not particularly great. Mer-SAA is actually going to go up a tier. The Mer-SAA is actually not too bad now. It's still not on par with things like Winged Hussar and that kind of stuff, but its AA potential's actually just that touch bit better. And I think that little bit is enough to warrant it being within B tier now. So yeah, pretty good there. Mer-T integrated. Nothing really changed there. It has more AA, but it was more about its ability to just hit things in the back row. I will say that the Murti integrated does particularly well against Xeno, but I'm going to have to leave it in C tier because I'm bringing Xeno down a tier. We'll get there, and I'll talk a bit about it when we get there. Mirror missile, same as the Murti, really. Nothing too different, to be honest, with them. FG3 armored is going to stay where it is as well. It doesn't really have enough armor to be in B tier as a tanking ship. Yes, it's 3 CP though, so I'm going to keep it in C tier. Otherwise, it'd probably be in D tier. Has no damage output. And to be honest, evasion and stuff is still better on things like frigates and destroyers. So armor it's not worth what it used to be, or it wasn't worth what it used to be either. But now everyone's, it's just not that good. Reliant anti-ship. I am actually going to leave this in B tier. It still performs very, very well, and with its changes, allowing it to hit, I think it's frigates. Off the top of my head, it's got like a strategy that gives it extra attacks on frigates or something of that nature. It's extra bomblets because it has a cluster bomb sword munition system. It does very, very well against things like Corellian Special or the Reliats, any of those high evasions, because it has a very, very decent amount of weight of fire by itself, and that's how you kind of beat things that are, very, very sort of dodgy. And Corellian Special Ruby is a great example where, you're pushing 70-80% dodge rates with it. And the Reliant is very, very good for that. Unfortunately, just about anything else, it's awful at. Hasn't got particularly great damage output. So I'm going to leave it there. Ruby Railgun, it's similar situation, but the opposite of the anti-ship. It is awful against any frigates and stuff like that. It's better against cruisers, and unfortunately, I don't think it really has the damage output against cruisers, so that's going to stay where it is. Murti AA, this is one of the ones that I'm going to move up again. This actually had really good AA prior to me sort of moving it up here, and now its AA is really, really, really good. The fact that it can be in like the back row and hit mid row aircraft is fantastic. It has really good damage potential. The Murti energy is still better for AA, but the Murti AAs now it's definitely up there. It's got really good damage for its CP cost. Specifically in AA sort of setups. Does mean that you are running, something that isn't quite so good against everything else, which does suck a little bit. But it is what it is. Onto the top of A row, we have the Ruby Ion Cannon. This is the first of the nerfs. The Ruby Ion got a CP increase, and it's difficult really because it is really still quite viable, but there are things that are just better in terms of CP cost for its damage output if you calculate it. But at the same time, the Ruby's also bringing that ability to shoot mid-row aircraft and do it reasonably well. I think I'm going to drop it down a little bit. I think it's going to stay in A tier, but I'm going to bring it down just a touch in A tier. Would it be worse than the Ruby defensive? No, it's still better than defensive, I think, in most situations, even with its CP cost. Yeah, I think that sort of works. The Murti energy, it's still really good. It's okay damage output, incredible AA, especially for its CP cost. Its AA now is even better than it was before. I don't believe it's S tier level. It's no like, say, Wing Tassar. I know that's a destroyer, but yeah, it is still really quite good. Definitely check the Murti out. It's an interesting ship, to be honest. Just generally speaking, it's all energy damage, and it does really good AA. The problem is when it is shooting the aircraft, it isn't shooting ships, so it kind of has to switch those targets. Once the AA is clear though, and it starts shooting frigates and stuff, it does reasonable damage there as well. So because it's got that sort of level of versatility, I think I'll leave it where it is. Mirrorless anti-ship, no changes there. It's still just great. It's just a good ship. And the Ruby defensive, again, its ability to frontline hold and stick, great amount of armor on a frigate, and inbuilt healing on itself. It's really just quite a good frontline ship in general, and one of the better tank ships in the game. It's actually, oddly, one of the only tank-style ships that doesn't have dodge rate. Well, no extra dodge rate, barring the fact that it's a frigate, so larger weapons struggle to hit it. But that literally does just sit there and take face full of damage and either, heal past it or mitigate it with its armor. So yeah, Ruby defense is still really, really strong. Carillion heavy cannon, it's where it is. It's not going to move from there, I don't think. The only thing that really keeps it in A tier, I think, is probably because of the strategy still pretty good on it. You run that within a flanking fleet. You run the Carillion as the flagship with its strategy, and it does work thanks to that. It does reasonable damage as well. It's no Ruby Ion. The Carillion's in its strategy is really, really top tier, and I think that's why I'm going to keep it in A tier. Whereas the Ruby Ion, although the nerf and hit it because now its CP damage is less efficient, the Carillion's damage is still lower than the Ruby Ion with the nerf in terms of damage per CP. So stays where it is really. Carillion Special still top of the S tier, I think. In terms of its ability to tank, it's still does pretty much everything. Noma support, it's still the best healer at CP cost. It actually beats the Cass, if I remember rightly. I need to double check the Cass. The Cass is a better healer, specifically because it's a big tanky ship in itself and they don't drop like flies, but the Nomas kind of do. But per CP cost, I think the Nova is still the most efficient healer in the game per CP. So yeah, the Noma is still up there. I still run Nomas early game, and when you're doing those day 1, day 2, level 2 city raids, the Noma is unquestionably the MVP of those fleets. You run 5 Nomas in those day 1, day 2 fleets to take cities, you won't lose a ship most of the time. So they are just really damn strong, and highly recommend if you haven't really run them. They are good for PvE, not so good for PvP. You can work them into a PvP fleet, but you're probably better off maybe just leaving them for PvE. Although, like I said, they do work. Reliant Stealth, still, in my opinion, the best mid-row tank ship in the game, or one of them at least anyway. Its ability to just sit in the mid-row, have loads of weapons shot at it, mostly missiles and that kind of stuff being mid-row, and it has pretty good, ability to dodge and that kind of stuff, and it sticks around. Aurelia Energy Torp as well. Similar situation to the Reliant Stealth. It's not quite as dodgy, but what it does bring instead of that is its ability to deal, significant amounts of damage. If anything, the Reliant Energy Torp can out-damage the Stealth. I leave the Stealth above the Reliant Energy Torp because I think being able to stick around a little bit longer usually is more useful for the fleet than just dealing extra damage in most situations. Obviously, just dealing pure unfettered damage is fantastic. The Xeno Special, I am dropping down to the top of A tier. The Reliant Energy Energy Torp, it can out damage the Xeno Special, and now with the Xeno Special CP cost at 8, it's very hard to warrant running Xeno Special anymore. Well, no, it's still fantastic, and it still does incredible amounts of damage. but its CP cost is so high. It's like 50% of the Reliat's cost. To give you an idea, it's ridiculous. Yes, it needed a nerf. That nerf was too much. I'd have personally just brought the damage down a little bit on it, just to keep it in line. It still can out-damage the Relic Energy Torp, but for the CP to efficiency, like, you can have a full set of Reliats out, Energy Torps, and Xenos, and you'll still have room, if you say, like, the max was the Xeno CP, to put in a load of Relic anti-ships, and at that point, you go, well, the Xeno doesn't actually out-damage all those extra ships you can bring for its CP costs, and that's why it goes down to A tier, in my opinion. It's a choice pick now, where you kind of want, oh, well, I've got my main fleet that's already got, you know, Relic Energy Torp, and it's got the Relic anti-ship damage, which was the same CP cost of your old your new Xeno. So your Xeno gets, like, backtracked into a second fleet, in my opinion. Because, you know, having those extra ships, that's more HP. It's more ships that they have to target, which means you lose less damage per ship loss. It's just this stacking indirect buff to all other ships that a CP change affects, which is why I really disagree with CP changes in general. But, you know, there you go. I personally think, you know, nerfing damage down so they come into, like, line with other ships just makes more sense. And then it's a choice. Oh, do I want energy torps because they're indirect fire? Do I want the Xeno special? Also indirect fire because they're UAVs, but you know, where you can make that sort of difference. With Ruby iron cannons, you know, it's a laser, it's direct fire, it has to hit the front row. Or do you want the Xeno or the Rally energy torp because they're going to target mid and back row? You know, that's where the choices should have been, not, well, the Xeno's now this expensive, so I can run Reliat plus something else, and it's equal to or more damage than this, but I've also got the benefit of more ships, which means they have to try and target each ship on each ship destruction, or if they retreat mid-row, they've got to retarget to another ship, and so there's less damage output for your enemy fleet, on top of, you know, all the other stuff going on. So yeah, it's yeah. Is where it is. Mare Imbrium, Pulse, and the Xeno AA. I'm going to leave that where it is. It's still great. It still does what it does. Previously, there was no CP change to it. It's fantastic for just killing off Corvettes. It does really well at that. I know a few people that don't have Mistrals and stuff like that, so they specifically run things like Xeno AA in fleet, and they're in, you know, they're fighting some of the top players in the game, and they do reasonably well, thanks to the Xeno AA, you know, usually nuking things like T-800s and Neb Pulsars and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, Xeno AA staying where it is. Mare Imbrium, Pulse, this got nerfed. I don't particularly think it should have got nerfed. Its damage output's not too dissimilar to Ruby Ion. It's just going there. It might have made, I don't think it'd even have made S tier at any point either. I think it's a good ship. I don't think it's amazing. Mare Imbrium Railgun is going into S tier though. Now, the reason for this, early game, they're not very good. I am not going to lie. Early game, not very good, because you don't have too many ships out, so when these retreat to mid-row and back-row, it doesn't bloody matter, they get shot and blown up anyway. However, that early mid-game transition when destroyer front rows start coming out and you have like a solid sort of setup, the Mare Imbrium starts becoming an absolute chore to kill off, especially if you have support from like Noma or Ceres or anything like that. The Mare Imbrium Railgun is a pain in the ass to kill off because it'll go to the front, it'll be in the front row, you'll shoot it loads, drops to, I think it's 50%, goes back to mid-row, you've lost target on it, it gets healed up and it'll go back to front row, or it keeps getting hit in mid-row and it goes back to the rear row and you've lost target again. All this time it's dishing out reasonable amounts of damage. It's a good ship, and it's only because of its ability to just move between rows, because it gets healed and moves between rows and stuff like that, while dealing decent amount of damage. It's not, you know, it's not Xeno special damage. It's not Rally Energy Torp damage. It's not even Ruby Ion damage. But because of its ability to stick on the board for ages, its damage output over longer fights is just really damn strong. And with nerfs of things like Xenos, where the damage output of those early to mid-game fleets is going to decrease slightly, well, the burst damage, sorry, is going to decrease slightly. The damage is going to relatively stay the same over a longer period, because you just switch out your Xeno for more ships. You're going to end up with these Mare Embryums, I think, about a lot, and I really think the Mare Embryon Railgun is pretty damn strong at the moment. Especially, like I said, you get those where you can get a bit of sustain off with the Noma support or the Mare series. It's going to do some really, really nice stuff for you. So yeah, that is the update for the frigate tier list. A couple of little moves. I'm sure people are going to sit there and go, the Xeno's still fucking amazing. Just put it in S tier. It is on that border still of being a S tier because the CP change it's not massive. But again, like I said, like if you compound like all the micro buffs that happen because of that CP nerf, when you compare it in fleets, you will start seeing, I think, people dropping Xeno from their lineups. From my testing as well, I started going, I don't think Xeno's worth it at the CP cost anymore. I could do this. I could like have Mare Emblem with this, or I could have, you know, Reliates, or it just didn't make any sense anymore. Okay, I could have a little bit of damage output for the small time Xenos are alive, or I could just have more sticky stuff. And just like elongate fights and, you know, grind through people instead. And the grind through people worked significantly better than I was expecting. So that is the frigates. I am currently in the testing of destroyers. Hopefully a few more days I'll be able to finish that one off, because I've been testing destroyers and stuff at the same time. Because you try and test like these early game fleets and the mid game fleets all at the same sort of time. Because that's mostly Frig Destroyer anyway. So yeah, they are being tested. I've made some interesting discoveries. Taurus, for example, the change didn't make too much a difference. It's still probably top tier, and that's because it's, you know, off tank and stuff like that. But it does put the Aldebaran in a position now. It's like, oh, you can bring the Aldebaran. It is cheaper, so you're in this position. It's sort of like the Xeno, where you go, oh, well, I could do either of these. The Aldebaran, I get a few more CP, and that means I can bring some extra damage in different form. Or you just stick with the Taurus because its damage is still good, its tank's still good. So yeah, it's an interesting change on that one. Bit more interesting than what happened with the Xeno, to be honest. I think the Xeno was just a little bit too heavily CP costed. And again, I don't think anything really should be changed by CP. It's a lazy way of changing, nerfing stuff or buffing stuff. It is just lazy. So there we go. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.